Hi, Light Beams. My name is Tai Semi, and for those of you who don't know, I am the founder of Tai-Lite Beauty. Tai-Lite Beauty is a skincare-based beauty brand committed to providing versatile products that promote healthy and glowing skin, encourage creativity, and allow you to personalize your beauty experience. Now, if you're wondering what this video is about, we are officially launching our Tai-Lite Beauty blog, which will really focus on diving into the beauty in all things, not just in beauty and the exterior, but just beauty of all things, whether that be food, interior design, music. We're definitely going to talk about just our inner beauty as well as our outer beauty, real life experiences. I definitely want to get real and raw on this blog. I want to be authentic, and I want to share some of my personal stories in the hopes that it could help somebody else, especially if you are an entrepreneur or, a Black woman or just a person in general. So, this is very hard for me, to be honest, to open up in this way. So bear with me, especially in the beginning process of, launching the blog and just like getting everything together. This is a new thing for me. I've never done this. I've never vlogged or blogged or, done much talking about anything aside from my career and my brand. So this should be interesting. And just to give you guys a little bit of a format on how this will go moving forward, every single week we'll have a look of the week. So I will talk to you guys about the look that I have, and I'll do a separate video actually recording the look so that you guys could follow, and then we'll dive into a topic. Now, the topics are not always going to be beauty related. Some of them might be there'll be topics about anything and everything, but we'll always tie in the beauty of that thing. So, the beauty in that, because I really want to start exploring beauty outside of just exterior and our appearance, because we're so much more than that. And, there's a ton of brands and there's a ton of things out there that's already holding that down. So I wanted to introduce something different, something more raw and real. So yeah, I'm just going to jump right into it and, just start getting into the swing of things. Like I said, this is the first time I've ever done this. I haven't done any other takes. I didn't practice, so bear with me. So the first thing I wanted to start off with is the look of the week. And the purpose of me doing these looks is to show you guys how to kind of like follow on and create looks using our products that are, bold and intense and, exciting to look at, but also easy to execute. So this was my first look, and the products that I used, and I'll link them below, are Glow Pigment Messiah, and are a custom Dream Lash. So this is the look I came up with, and I was kind of going for like an avatar. I just wanted to feel like an avatar today. That was like my vibe. So blues and greens and golds. You can see like I have green like Eden on my lips, which I know is different. Like, we don't usually wear green on our lips or at all. So I just wanted to show you guys a way to do it to still make it look beautiful and pretty, but still use that like bold color. And of course, the lashes. So this is the look of the week, and every single week, in addition to the video, I will do a separate video of how I did the look, and you can kind of like dive in and follow along. So don't feel bad if you missed something within this video, or if I didn't share, I will definitely let you guys know how I created the look. And then, okay, so the next thing I wanted to do is kind of like dive into my founding story, just to give you guys a little background on me. Like I said, I don't usually share, unless I'm being interviewed. That's usually when it's usually someone asks me a question and then I'll answer it. But I've never really come out and like shared my story. So I kind of want to do that with you guys today and just kind of like rewind it back. So let's rewind it all the way back, since it is a blog, so we have like more time. It's not like 5 seconds on Instagram. But just, I need to stop saying that's something I want to work on. All the ums need to, but this is new for me, so I'm giving myself a little grace. And, yes, so just to rewind it back, when I was 17 years old, I moved to New York City to study fashion. I went to FIT. I wasn't, it's really interesting when I talk about FIT because it's like I'm so thankful and, proud and all those good things. Experience was not as impactful as I would hope it was. I thought it was just going to be like so many, like all the people who won like best dressed in high school and all like the misfits and like the cool creative art kids would be at the school, which it was. I won't say that it wasn't, but I still felt like a misfit. And that might be speaking more to me and who I am than it is about the school itself or the people who went there. Because still to this day, I still haven't found a community that I really feel like I fit into. I've always felt like a misfit and I've never shaken that feeling. But we'll dive into that a little later. But yeah, it wasn't as, my major was fashion merchandising and management at the time. I think they changed the name since then. So it was like the business side of fashion, which was business. It wasn't as creative as I had hoped it would be. I did take like a rendering class, and we did do like sketches and stuff like that. And I did take like a fashion design rendering class. But other than that, it was pretty much like a business marketing degree. Like that was what it was, like, but just using fashion, like if the example would be that we were using would be fashion, like we would be talking about JCPenney, as opposed to, funny because now our products are in JCPenney, very funny, but we did a lot of projects on like JCPenney and Macy's and department stores and stuff like that, but it was marketing. That's what it was. So I wasn't loving it. I definitely wasn't loving it. I definitely wasn't loving college. I met a lot of cool people, so I will never take that experience away. But it just didn't hit the way I thought it was going to hit. So after that, I kind of like dabbled in a bunch of like odd things. I just did a lot of odd jobs. Like I've done like the craziest things, just like for experience. Now looking back at it, like I completely understand like the journey like God was taking me on, because all of those things were significant to who I am now and, being able to start a business. So I see like where God was going, like with everything. But just like, it is just funny to like look back and think about it because, I just did a lot of odd jobs. Like, those people who like stop you in the street and in New York and like pitch you like either a charity or like a company or something. Like I was one of those people, like, which people find very hard to believe, but I was, and I did really well. And it really taught me how to like break out of my shell. It really taught me how to talk to people. It really built my confidence. So, like I said, looking back now, I can see, I did gain a lot from it. So I did a lot of odd jobs. I ended up working at a photo studio, which that's really kind of like what kickstarted my career. So working there was around like all aspects of the industry. So I was around producers, stylists, makeup artists, photographers, everybody. And one of the perks of working there was we were allowed to use the studios. Like when they weren't booked, we were allowed to use them for free. So everyone who worked there was a creative. So we all took advantage of that. Like we would all like, do shoots together and stuff like that. So that's kind of how I like got started, being there. At first, like most fashion kids, I was like, okay, yeah, I've been a fashion kid all my life. So it's styling. Like I feel like that's like the go-to for like any fashion kid. Like the first thing you think about is, styling. And so I dabbled a little bit in that. Like I assisted a few people, and I found that I didn't like styling other people as much as I like styling myself. And it wasn't stimulating me creatively. So I tried makeup. I was kind of like forced, it's a long story, but I was kind of like forced into it. I was styling like a test shoot, and I had dibbled and dabbled in makeup and did some stuff on my friends, but it wasn't like in my head as like, what I was going to do, because, after I decided on makeup being the thing I was going to do, I remember someone who was like one of the higher ups in the company who was like, a big deal in the industry. He was like, well, you have to pick one. Like I remember him telling me I had to pick one. And it's just so funny because now I would never advise someone that they have to pick one, but I did feel that pressure to pick one. And I picked makeup, but the reason why I even started considering makeup is because I was, styling a test, and I wanted to have a makeup artist there and I just didn't have the connections to really get one, or, the person I did want to do it couldn't do it. So I ended up just doing it myself. And from the first time I did makeup professionally, I would say, on a set, I loved it and I was good at it. That was the thing too. Like, not only did I love it and I felt creatively stimulated, I was good at it for someone who wasn't trained or who wasn't doing this, didn't have experience. Like I said, I maybe had done 2 things on some friends outside of this and some stuff on myself, but this really was the first time that I was really doing someone's makeup. And I was really good at it and I really loved it and I never stopped since then. So after that, like I said, one of the higher ups, I was telling him like, I really like this and I'm into it, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, you have to pick one. And I picked makeup and I kind of just took it and ran with it. And I was excited about it. I really was excited. I was meeting all of these people who from the studio, like actual makeup artists. And I was like, great, like I can find somebody to assist and kind of do things the right way and really learn, which I did. I found someone to assist. And that's when things kind of got hard because I've only assisted 2 makeup artists in my whole career and both of the experiences were pretty bad. So that's it got hard for me when I was assisting because there's a lot of politics to this industry, not just makeup, but just the fashion industry in general. So, there's a lot of politics that I didn't know, obviously, I didn't understand. And my personality and my presence is quite loud. At the time, I didn't know that. I didn't understand the power of my presence because I still didn't even understand myself. I think I had just turned 21 at this time. Like I started this at 20 and I had just turned 21 when I was assisting. So I still didn't even know myself. Like, let's keep it a buck. Like, I didn't even know myself. I didn't know my strength, my power. I was still, finding myself, learning to love myself. At the time, I thought loving yourself was thinking you were pretty. Like, I thought because all throughout high school, I didn't really think I was pretty. And, typical dark-skinned Black girl story, you know how that goes. And I lived in a suburban, white town. Like, there was some minorities. All the minorities obviously were my friends, but majority of people were white. So, and I was dark-skinned. So it was a typical that stuff. So when I finally got to New York and I spent a couple of years there, I started thinking I was pretty. And then I thought that's what self-love was. I'm like, okay, great. Now I know I'm cute. I love myself, right? Like, what else is there to know? A lot. There's much more to self-love than thinking you're pretty. But I didn't know that at the time. So I'm like, okay, great. Like, I'm feeling confident, whatever. But yeah, I didn't know the presence that I carried. I have always been spiritual. I've always had my own relationship with God outside of family or outside of the Haitian churches that I went to. I'm Haitian also. The Haitian churches that I went to growing up, I've always had a very singular relationship with God. It didn't involve my parents or my family. But I didn't understand my power. I didn't understand, even though I had a relationship with God, even though God has always been very present in my life and loud in my life, I didn't understand my power at that time, and I didn't understand my presence. So I didn't understand why the women that I was assisting, and these were not women of color, so just to put that out there. So I didn't understand why the women that I was assisting treated me a certain way. I didn't understand why, there were certain rules, I really couldn't talk. And now, if you're in the industry, they try to say yeah, but that's just how it is. But there's a lot of things in the industry that just because it's how it is doesn't make it okay. It's, it's very normalized to treat people poorly, and it's very normalized to have all these unsaid politics that are not very humane or just not very kind, in general. But like I said, I didn't know them. And now that I'm, established and published and all those good stuff, not that those things even matter, but I still don't agree with those practices. And I never, when it came time for me to have assistants and things like that, I never carried those over. But at the time, yeah, I couldn't talk. Like I would get in trouble for like interacting with people. They didn't want me to interact. I had this one lady who people would compliment me and she would get upset. Like she would always get upset and throw a dig. Every time one of the models or somebody complimented me, she would throw a dig. And then she would go out. I remember one time she would go out of her way we were doing like this show. So there was a ton of makeup artists there. It wasn't just, no, there was a ton of assistants there. So it wasn't just me assisting her. I was her lead assistant or whatever they call it, her first assistant. First, that's what they call it. I was her first assistant, but there was a ton of other assistants there. And she would go out of her way to like compliment them and say all these nice things to them while treating me like shit. And I thought it was so weird. Like, I remember one time she would also get upset because of course, all the models, all the Black models would come and sit in my chair. And she would get offended because, I wasn't allowed to do makeup. I was just allowed to like clean brushes and just help her. But it was very rare that I was allowed to actually like do the makeup. And, but obviously the models don't know that. They don't know who's who. So they would come sit in my chair and they'd be like, oh, I want her to do my makeup because she's Black. Like, it's obvious, like, especially at this time, like, yes, now, there are more products out there and stuff like that. But this was like 8 years ago. It wasn't, and even now still, most models are going to be like, okay, cool. Black, I'm going to sit here type. So, obviously the models are just trying to make sure they don't come out gray or look crazy by, having someone who wasn't they don't know who's who or whatever. So they would want me to do their makeup. And she would get really mad. She's like, oh, she's just an assistant. She can't do your makeup. I have to do your makeup. And, but then start treating me poorly, being very passive aggressive towards me. When people would, which this is a definite rule, like you aren't allowed to like exchange contact information. Like I know that. But at the time I didn't know that. Mind you, I don't have a portfolio at this time. She knows all this because this was a recommendation. So, from a friend. So I don't have a portfolio at the time. I don't have anything, So I remember this other time, like this model wanted to get my Instagram, not even for makeup purposes, she wanted to be friends. And she like flipped out on me about that. Like she's like, you cannot exchange information, which you can't, for the record, you can't, give your client, you can't steal someone's client, obviously. But it wasn't that situation. And she knew very clear, but anything to flex her power, she would do it. And I remember one day, oh my God, I don't think I've ever even said this. I remember one day we were on set and it was a big commercial for a big brand. So they had 2 studios. So, and a bunch of models. So that day I actually had to like do makeup because there was just too many people. So she had to be in one studio and I was in the other studio. And, just working whatever. I'm doing everyone's touch-ups. At this point, the makeup's already done. I'm doing everybody's touch-ups, blah, blah, blah. Everyone's having a good time on set. Everything's going well. She comes into the studio and sees that like everyone's just like, working, chilling, whatever they were doing. And a few people were like chatting with me. A few of the models while they were waiting for their turn on set we're just on the side, just like chatting. She comes over, goes to the makeup station, opens a bag of lipsticks, and she dumps them all over the floor, saying like, oh, she was looking for a shade. She dumps them all over the floor. And then she goes, Tai, can you pick those up? I was like, and then not just me, everybody was just like, she walks into the studio, dumps all of these lipstick on the floor. There's a table. It's not like there's a table, guys, there's a table. She dumps them on the floor looking for a shade, finds the shade or whatever she was doing. I wasn't even paying attention, whatever she was doing. And then she comes over to me and asks me to pick them up. So degrading. I've never even talked about this, but it was so degrading, so embarrassing. I mean, more embarrassing than like, her throwing shade when people would compliment me. That stuff, I'm like, okay, typical. Like at that time, I also was like learning what like people hating on you was. Like I don't know if it was because, I don't know, but like it was just very profound in my life at that time, like experiencing people, maybe it's the industry really. But just experiencing people like trying to like really put you down and like learning to recognize that. Cause I feel like before I didn't really recognize it and it wasn't so blatant. So, I kind of felt, I would feel away when she would throw those digs, when people would compliment me, I would feel away. And she would throw like passive aggressive digs like, oh yeah, her skin is so fucking perfect, whatever, like, things like that. And I'm like, okay. And I remember when she was interviewing me, this should have been a red flag for me. And I should have understood. She was like, do you have a boyfriend? And I thought that was a weird question. I was like, oh no. She's like, oh, well, because my last assistant had a boyfriend and it was too much of a distraction. I don't want to deal with that. And I'm like, to me, I'm like, okay, it seems like you're hating because someone being in a relationship, it should have nothing to do with you or, whatever, unless, but, I was trying to give her the benefit of the doubt and I really wanted the job. So I'm thinking like, oh, maybe like the girl was really distracted and would talk about her boyfriend all the time. Maybe that's why. But I still thought it was really weird for her to ask me that. So yeah, back to the day. It was so degrading. Oh my God. I remember my eyes were like watering a little bit and I picked up the lipsticks and I just thought to myself like, wow, like I can, and the mind, I will say this, I have a memory of a goldfish. So she did a lot other worse things. Like this was like, I assisted her for a few months. So she did a lot of things. These are just the stories that I remember, but it was like built up at this point. The only reason why my eyes were watering is at this point, it had been like, every single time that we were on set, she was doing something else. So it was like bubbled over at this point. And so yeah, with my little watery eyes, I go in and I pick up the lipsticks and I just felt like crap. Like I felt super shitty after that. And she would never pay. She would never pay on time. And she was like, I remember she told me, she's like, you have to remind, she said, you'll never have to remind me more than 3 times to pay you. I was like, more than 3? So yeah, that's the type of time she was on. So I kind of like bowed out gracefully with that. And then I was like, okay. And then at the time, this is another little shady story. Ooh, the shady stories are just popping up now that I'm even thinking about it. So at the time, I move into an apartment in Crown Heights. And I move into this apartment, like renting this room. And I was so excited because one of the girls that I was renting from was a makeup artist. So I'm like, oh my God, great. Like we're going to be friends and someone to talk to about the experience. And didn't work out that way. She ended up being another super hater. And the only reason why I found out, I remember when I came home like in tears after that day, and I was like telling her and the other roommate about it. She was like, well, that's the industry. You're not supposed to talk. Like, you're not supposed to do these things. Like, that's your job. Like, your job is to be in the corner and not be seen or heard and not be noticed. And I was like starting to put 2 and 2 together. I'm like, oh, like this must be why this lady hates me so much, because I'm going to be noticed. I do not have one of those presences where you're just not going to see me and I'm going to blend into the wall like a lamp. Like, you're going to notice me. I'm going to stand out. So, I remember thinking like, oh, if those are the rules, not be seen, heard is one thing. Like, I can understand not to talk. Okay, whatever. Even though now that I'm grown, I do not agree at all whatsoever. But not be heard is one thing, but not be seen or noticed. I'm like, that's clearly, this isn't the route for me, because that's just not me. It's not me. People are naturally drawn to me. People are going to talk to me. I'm standing right there. So, so when she said that, I was like, oh, okay. Like, whatever. And I still didn't know she was a hater at this point until she was moving out and getting someone to replace her lease. And I ended up being really good friends with the woman who replaced the lease, my friend Jessica. Shout out to you, boo. But I remember my friend telling me after she moved in and we became friends, she was asking the girl, the makeup artist, who else lives in the apartment and what they do. And she said the other roommate, she told her what she do. And she's like, oh yeah, and Tai, she like works in retail or something. I'm like, retail? Like, why would you lie? I'm like, oh my God. And I started realizing, I'm like, these people be hating, child. Oh my God. I wasn't used to like, like I've seen all the, of course I watched, Cat Williams's stand up when he was like, if you don't have haters, like you're not doing anything. And if any of you haters out there need someone to hate on, be free to hate on me. And I used to love that and like laugh, but like when it's actually happening, it it's sad. I was not like, that was not my energy towards having quote unquote haters. I did not like it. You know, I identify as a recovering people pleaser, but at that time I was still knee deep in my people pleasing tendencies. So I did not like the feeling of having haters one bit. It made me very sad, actually. So I felt really bad. Like, you know, when I was hearing these things, it really made me feel like shit. And yeah, so then fast forward, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna try this again. I assist another lady. And she was kind of cool. Like, she wasn't like the other girl. Like, she was kind of cool at first. She did do some like shady stuff here and there. She did do some shady stuff here and there. I remember one time we were doing, I don't want to name drop, but we were doing another big brand that we all know and love. We were doing their fashion show, and there was a bunch of celebrity models, and she had a sponsorship for a brand, and she was kind of doing like videos, like little like sponsorship videos for the brand, but she didn't ask one of the models if that was okay. Like, she just started like literally recording a commercial damn near. And the girl was like, I did not agree to, you know, record this commercial. And I'm minding my business, literally minding my business, washing brushes or whatever I was doing. And the actor, the model, she starts like flipping out. She's like, I did not agree to this. Like, I don't, you know, they start arguing back and forth. And she's like, she's like, I don't want this white woman doing my makeup. Matter of fact, like, she went and got the designer, came back and made a whole scene. She's like, I do not want this woman doing my makeup. There's a lot of little bits and pieces of the story that I'm missing out. But the point of the story is like, she was like, no, I want someone black doing my makeup. I didn't approve of doing like this video, this commercial. Like, I'm not for this. I do not, you know, this woman is making me uncomfortable. She like really like blacked. And she was like, I want you to do my makeup. It was another one of those situations where she's like, I want you to do my makeup. I'm like, oh, here we go again, child. I'm like, please stop asking me to do makeup, y'all. Like, although I would love to, but these women are about to kill me. Like, so now the lady starts giving me attitude. Like, she literally starts giving me attitude because the woman wanted me to do her makeup. So she starts giving me attitude. She starts being rude to me. And instead, just to be petty, instead of having me do her makeup, she has another black assistant do it, but not me. Just to like, you know, I don't even know what her reasoning was, but she started throwing shade at me, and just, it was starting to feel repetitive from my last situation after that situation. So I was just done. I was like, I'm done with this assisting stuff. Like, I'm through. Like, this is the devil's work. Like, I'm not with it. And at the time too, I was like, honestly, I don't even know if I want to do makeup. Like, that's kind of like what I was on at that time. Cause I was like, if this is the industry, all of these fake ass politics that don't make no sense, people mad at you because people notice you. Like, how the hell am I going to stop people from noticing me? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm sorry that you guys are in these, I'm sorry that you guys are being booked in these, you know, black environments with other black people, and you're not of color. They're obviously going to gravitate towards the person of color. That's not, you know what I mean? If that's the case, don't take on these jobs that have so many black people. If, you know what I mean? And then have a black assistant, like, that's just what it is. Anyways, I was just like, if this is the industry and it's all of these politics and it's all this stuff and, you know, people are this rude, I don't want to be in it, you know? And I had other experiences as well, but those were the top two that kind of like really, like, those two women like really hit the nail in the coffin for me. So I was like, I don't want to be in it if this is how it's going to be. Like, I don't want to feel like this. I don't want to go to work. Mind you, I'm like, why am I under a microscope? I'm not even the model. You would think, in my head, I'm thinking the model is going to be on a microscope, but it's me. Like, what I wear, what I was wearing was always a problem. Everything about me was always a problem to these women. And, you know, based on how people reacted towards it. And, I remember one lady, one of the first lady, the real true hater, I remember she was so mad at these models talking to me, like, the whole time she was doing their makeup, she was talking to me. She was so mad that there was another assistant there. Like, she literally was like implying to the other assistant that she's so amazing and her work is so good that she's going to make her first assistant right in front of me. I was like, girl, boo. Anyways, a funny story, the way God works, a funny story is, I thought I was going to stop doing makeup. I'm going to go back to that point. But fast forward like 6 months later, I'll never forget. I was doing a shoot. I was doing a shoot at, I almost said the name of the studio. I was doing a shoot at the studio that I had used to work for. That lady was doing a shoot right next to me in another studio for another client. And I remember walking out and seeing her, and she's like, oh, like, what are you doing? I'm like, oh yeah, I'm doing makeup for a shoot. And it was just funny that like the person that she had been, literally shitting on all this time, now we're in the same position in the same studio doing the same thing. Right. Anyways, so to go back, I was like, whatever, like, I don't think I want to do this anymore. And at that time, I was going through a lot in my personal life. That apartment that I had been living in, it turned out to be a crazy situation. So I like had to move out, and I was like homeless, and I was dating this like crazy guy at the time. Like, oh my God, I was dating this guy at the time who was just, oh my God, like horrible situation that I had got myself into with this person. And I was going through a lot in my personal life at the time. I wasn't talking to my family for some years. It had been 2 years that I wasn't talking to my family. So I truly felt abandoned. So I was very vulnerable. And that's kind of how I got wrapped up in the situation with this guy. And so then I felt I was homeless. I had to get out that situation because it was like crazy, that situation in the apartment. And I went to stay with him. And it's so funny because I look back on it, and I had only stayed with him for 2 weeks. I kid you not, it was 2 weeks. But it felt like 6 months. Like everything that I experienced that time period in my life and the way it traumatized me, let's keep it a buck, the way it traumatized me, I really thought it was 6 months. Hold on. But yeah, like the way that situation like traumatized me, I really thought, I remember like a couple of years ago, I was like really thinking about it. I was like, oh my God, that was only 2 weeks I was there. Because I really felt like the memory felt like I was there for 6 months, but I was doing the math. I was like, girl, you was only there for 2 weeks. But anyways, I had to live with this guy. It was a horrible situation. Oh my God, it was the worst. And, I'm gonna do a blog. I'm gonna do an episode where I actually talk about like love. And when I dive into more of that, this isn't about that. This is more of an intro and my founding story of my brand. So I'm not gonna get too deep into it right now. But yeah, it was a horrible situation, and I felt so lost. I felt so broken. I no longer knew what I wanted to do with like my life, because at that time I was like, I don't want to be in this industry. I'm like, I don't think I want to do this or associate with these people. Like, this is not what I want. This was not my idea of artist. Like when I dreamed about being an artist like this, I thought I didn't think it was so much of like I didn't think it was so cliquey. I didn't think there was so many like politics. I didn't think it was so clout chasing, like, the way they paint, New York to be. I didn't think it was going to be like this for artists. I'm like, we're supposed to be like the underdogs. We're supposed to be, and I still think there is, now that I've, been in LA and stuff like that, I still think in terms of authenticity, I still think New York has it on lock. But that's just what I was feeling at the time. I was like, this wasn't the community that I thought I was going to, be a part of. So I was so sad. I was sad about my career. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my career now and all of these things. And I was living with this guy, but I needed to, when I feel like I've hit rock bottom, I have to make something. I have to create something. I have to do something that brings me some sort of joy. So at that time, because I was just feeling so low, I was like, I need to make something. And I remember throughout, and it was so funny because like, even though I was saying that I was leaving makeup, I started creating a product. But so at the time, I remember, when I was, testing, that's what they call test. If you guys don't know what a test shoot is, it's like, so usually you do it in the beginning of your career. I mean, you can do it throughout your whole career, but it's like, it's when everyone gets together and nobody gets paid, and it's like it's a test shoot. So I was doing a lot of tests because I was new, and it's for exposure. And I remember just doing all these test shoots and feeling like, dang, I don't have enough, like, and I was doing a lot of work on Black people. I was like, dang, there's not enough, like, you know, pigmented. I need things that like have a lot of pigment and color payoff, because, you know, since the first time I did makeup, I was already doing like editorial stuff. So I'm getting to do like all of these like editorial avant-garde out the box looks. And I'm like, these colors ain't showing up on us. Like, it's not hitting the way it's supposed to hit. So during that, during that time, I was like, okay, like, let me see. I started doing research. I'm like, well, how do you make like pigments and eyeshadows and highlighters? Like, how do you make this stuff? Just out of curiosity. So I started doing research and looking up how to make it. And during that time staying with that guy, I started making pigments. And I was just doing like a simple like powder formulation. Like, it was very, very simple, bare bones type of stuff. And that's kind of when I started. That's when I started doing it. And then I got out of that situation, moved forward. Still at that time, like, you know, a lot of my community, we were testing a lot. I knew a lot of people. Everyone I knew was in the industry. So even though I was like saying that I was quitting, I was still getting hit up left and right to do tests and eventually start doing paid work or whatever. So I kind of like went back into makeup. I was like, all right, well, let me give this another try, especially from the angle of, you know, just working with me. Like, I'm not working for another person. I'm not assisting, just like doing tests and just working with my community. So I gave it another shot, and I started loving it again. I started falling in love with it again, and I started working, and I would use my pigments on myself and I would use them on my clients. And that's what it was. Like, it was just a very, like, I didn't think anything else of it. 2 years go by. So now fast forward 2 years. Now I'm submerged into like the clean beauty world. I got a freelance brand ambassador position for a clean brand. So doing that, I was always in clean beauty stores and clean beauty spaces. So then I started learning about clean beauty, and I'm like, where has this been? Like, this isn't marketed towards or geared towards brown and Black communities at all, because I don't know anyone, you know, who's using clean products. I was shocked that there was whole stores dedicated to clean beauty. You know what I mean? I was shocked. And I kind of got submerged into that part of the industry. So now I'm like deep into the clean beauty industry. I'm learning so much about the different products. Now I'm transitioning. My entire kit is now clean. You know, I'm getting educated more and more on clean brands. And then I remember one time I took a seasonal position at one of the clean beauty stores that I used to work at as a brand ambassador. I took a seasonal position there for some extra money. And I remember we had a course, like we were onboarding like a new brand or whatever. And the founder had come in and was doing like a course. So this is like my first, like, you know, sitting down, listening to someone talk about their clean products and what they're good for, and just like really diving deep into that. And I remember during that meeting, I was sitting there and I was like listening to her. And then in my head, it was like a light bulb went off. I was like, I should reformulate my pigments and make them clean. And I was like, oh my God, it was like it's so crazy thinking back on it now. I'm like, wow, it's like when you think about when the seed was planted and you had no idea you were planting a seed. You're just like living your life. No idea you're planting seeds, you know, on your way to build generational wealth, changing your life, all these good things. You see how God works? We'll talk about God in another blog. But we'll talk about God in every blog, but, you know, we'll really talk about spirituality. So that's when the seed was planted. I was like, I should reformulate my pigments and make them clean and make it simple, like not anything crazy, like, you know what I mean? Because another thing too, when we started learning about like ingredients and stuff like that, and I started learning like, oh wow, like, you know, you flip over the back of a product, you don't know any of those words. I'm like, I haven't heard. So I started flipping things over and I'm like, I don't know what any of these things are. And then I started learning the difference between holistic products and products that have like safe synthetics and the difference between that. And I started thinking of like what I want my pigments to be. I'm like, I don't want it to be like, oh, like you can't pronounce anything here. Like, you know what I mean? Because I'm like, yes, these are safe synthetics, but I still don't know what this is. And your skin absorbs, I think, what, 70% of what you put on it? And I'm like, we don't even know what it is. We have no clue what it is at all. So I was thinking, I was like, wow, like I want to reformulate and make it like, make the ingredients simplified, like something where it's like, I know exactly what that is. Like, yep, check, check, check. I know what that is. And so then I started like doing research, really figuring out what can combine with what, did multiple, oh my God, I think I still have my old notebook of all the different formulations that I did. Like, so this is all trial and error, you know, like I didn't know what formula was going to work. So I would try one thing, it didn't work, try another thing, and I would write it all down. So I have all these like different formulations that I created until I landed on our current formula for our glow pigments. And that really is the birth of Tai-Lite Beauty. So I landed on the formula, and this is so funny now that I think back on it. So I would say for about a year and a half after launching, I was making them, because the way I started, I made them individually. So it wasn't until, you know, I was chatting with one of my old friends. It wasn't until I was chatting and she was like, hey, like, why don't you just make it in batches? I'm like, I'm a Virgo and I'm very type A. So it's like, once I start doing something one way, I don't even think to do it a different way. So like if I take one way home, child, I take that way home every time. So my, you know, habitual brain was just like, this is the way that works. This is the way I do it. I do them in singular, you know, I do them individually. So just think about that. So for a year and a half, I was doing each single pigment individually, even for our launch. Just think about the time, the time. Very tedious work. So I reformulate and I find a formula that hits, that I like. Simple, 5 ingredients, hits, like it. I reformulate, find a formula that hits. And, you know, it's more than just like putting this formula together. It's how you mix it, how you do there's a lot that goes into it. So even when I got the formula, I still had to figure out how to make it all work. So, okay, whatever. I finally get that going. But at the time, my career as a makeup artist was still my priority. You know, it was still like, you know, I still wasn't considering this to be something that was going to be, to me, it was going to be a side hustle, a hobby, but I never considered it to be what it is today. So, so now we're fast forwarding, we're knee deep in 2019, we're towards the end. And, I was still using them on set. And then I would have friends, you know, the people on set with, my peers, colleagues and stuff. They're like, oh, like, why don't you like sell them? Like, why don't you launch this? I'm like, yeah, you know, I will one day, whatever kind of vibe. Like, you know, I didn't have really date or time onto it or know how I was even going to execute that. Or, you know, launching a business is a very vulnerable thing, you know? So I was kind of like, yeah, type of deal. And then one day I finally, so the push was, okay, again, I'm going through a breakup. And this one really hurt, because this one I really felt like I loved this person. In 2019, before fall, like I would say from the beginning of 2019 all the way to fall, so all the way to like October, it was like the best year of my life in terms of I was the most happy. Like I was so happy. I liked where my career was going. I liked the work that I was doing, the work that I was putting out. I was very proud of it. I liked my relationship. I was having a lot of fun. You know, I liked my friend circle at the time. I was having a lot of fun. So I was really enjoying 2019. And then boom, breakup, right? It was very sudden. It was very like out of the blue. It was very crazy to me. So that sent me on just like an emotional, like, oh my God, my heart just broke. And I really felt like I loved this person. So this one was hard for me to swallow. Like this one was like, I couldn't even eat this one. This one was like I think my first ever breakup ever when I was like 19 years old, I was like sick, whatever, couldn't eat, whatever. But I realized, you know, after the first one, you're like, girl, bye. But this one, ooh, it hurt. Child. I mean, now I'm like, girl, bye. But at the time, I was like, whoo, I thought I was going to die. So I can't eat. I can't sleep. I can't think. And thank God for the friends that I had at the time. And, but, girls still got to work. Girls still got to, the jobs is still being booked. I'm still booked. So it's like, I still thank God though, because that helped me to kind of like get out of my bed. Let's say that. So, I'm still working or whatever. And then I had a friend who, and it was like one of those breakups where it's like in and out. It was like you're breaking up, but just like you was breaking up we were like breaking up for a whole year after that. It was just, oh God. But I was on set and I had a friend that was using my pigments again. And she was like, girl, you should like really launch these, whatever. I was like, yeah, whatever. And she's like, actually, shout out to Joan. She was like, actually, I'm doing a market. Like I'm doing a holiday market. And I would love for you to like vend, like you should come and like vend your products. And that, I don't even know if I ever told her this, but babe comment, shout out to Joan. That's kind of what really pushed me into really launching, because I'm like, oh crap, like now there's an actual date, like there's an actual thing that I have to be at and to present myself as a founder and to present this as a legitimate brand. So that kind of was like the push I needed. And I remember her husband, I was the first person to ever buy one of my pigments, and I still have that picture. But yeah, so when she was like, and I was like, yeah, like, of course I'll do it. And so then I went home, I was like, oh my God, what did I just say? What did I agree to, child? So I was like, okay, crap, kicking this into overdrive. You know what I mean? Like now we're really about to make this a business. Like this is really about to be a thing. So I kind of used that as like a soft launch, because I, of course, wanted to do like a legitimate launch of the brand when I was like with, the vision and idea that I had for the launch. So I used that as like a soft launch, and it was great. I had a great time. It was a great event. And then like a month later, I officially launched. And in the written part of the blog, you'll see like I have a picture of like the actual launch, and it was so cute. I look back now and I think like, wow, like I can't believe I'll have this memory forever, and I have pictures and I have videos, like, and just to see how far we've come from that point. Our packaging, everything is different. But yeah, we had our launch and it was beautiful. It was so cute. I loved it. And that was the start of Tai-Lite Beauty. But then this, I launched, I believe, December 21st, 2019. Child, the pandemic happened, March? So just launching, again, this is still not my focus. My makeup artist career is still my main priority. Just launching, but I'm trying to get any events, anything that I can vend at. Like we were vending. Like now that I'm more of an established founder, I understand the significance of the things that I was doing and the milestones I was hitting so early on. We were vending a lot. So I was vending at any little thing I could get my hands on. And then the pandemic hit. So everything shuts down. I am depression, child, because I'm more so, like I said, concerned about my makeup artist career. I'm like, oh my God, like I can't work. I can't, you know what I mean? I couldn't even do my side hustles, which was being a brand ambassador for other brands. I couldn't even do that because we couldn't be in stores. Yeah, so I couldn't do any of my side hustles. I'm so sad about that. But then it kind of pushed me into really focusing on my brand because there was nothing else I could focus on. And then the whole George Floyd thing happened. So BLM was a huge deal. Like, that's Black Lives Matter comes about. It becomes a huge deal. And there's a lot of established companies and brands looking for Black businesses, small Black businesses to support during this time. So I don't know how, God's grace, literally, God's grace. I don't know how, SEO, I don't know, child. So I don't know what marketing list we got on, but we started getting a lot of press. We started getting offers for a lot of press. We started getting offers for a lot of press, and we started just getting a lot of press in general. And that kind of put the brand in a position larger than me. So now I felt like and that's where the imposter syndrome comes in. Because now I felt like now I'm trying to keep up with the brand. I'm trying to keep up with, you know what I mean, with the trajectory of which it was going. And it was hard. It is hard. It's so hard. That part of it was hard because I'm bootstrapping. It's a pandemic. I'm broke. I ain't got no money. And I'm trying to keep up with, being published in these major publications. How do you keep up with, yeah, it was hard to keep up. And some of these also too, let me note, because I want to be very transparent and honest on this platform and on my blog for other people who, I want people to understand the journey. Like, people don't understand. They just see the end result, or they just see you when you went viral, when you popped, and they have no idea what's gone into it, how long you've been doing it, and what happened. So a lot of these bigger publications, it's not all of them. I didn't have to for all of them, but some of them you have to pay for these partnerships. Even though it is, again, let's be frank, it is still an honor to be asked by huge publications to be featured. Like, it's still an honor. So I don't want to take away from that, because it is still an honor, but some of them you do have to pay for. Not all, but some of them you do. So that's like a risk that, if you want to take that for your business, I will say there's pros and cons to both. It's not going to catapult you for, any entrepreneurs or people who are starting out who are watching this. I wouldn't say it will catapult your sales and you're about to like make a bunch of money from it, but to have that name under your belt is priceless, and it'll help you get other things. It'll help legitimize your business. It'll help you to get grants. So it does help. So there is pros and cons. So I don't want you to think that there are benefits. There are definitely benefits to it, even though it's not at the time. I'm like, oh, I'm about to make mad money. I'm about to be rich. No, no, not at all. So, I didn't understand the benefits. So I'm like, oh my God, this didn't give us like the amount of sales that I expected it to. But that, notoriety of that, that legitimizing your business in that way does help in other ways. It's, to have that name under your belt. So it is something to consider. And if you have questions, or if you need help, or if you want to know which ones are paid and which ones aren't, let me know and I can help you. So yeah, so I'm trying to keep up to and live up to these big publications that my brand is being publicized in. And that part of it was hard. I put a lot of pressure on myself to do that. But that's kind of like what started everything. And that's kind of how things began to snowball. And then, once things started opening up again, I started working as a makeup artist again. And then we started getting partnerships, and partnerships led to brick and mortar stores, and so on and so forth, and to where we are now. So, like I said, my goal here is to really be transparent about the journey. It's been really tough, guys. It has been hard. There have been times that I'm like, girl, why did you do this? Or do you want to continue to do this? Is this really your purpose? Is this really your calling? Just this past year alone, I will say I went through the most, and I've been depressed before. I've been through a lot in my life. I've lived, it's like, I'm in my, I'm 27, but I've lived so much. But I will say, so thus far, this past year has been the most depressed I've ever been in my entire life. I've been in complete isolation, which now that I'm getting out of it, I definitely see why that isolation was necessary. I see what God was doing. And it has made me who I am today. And I really feel like a new person. Like, people who have known me, I'm like, you don't even know me anymore. And it's been the toughest thing. You lose a lot of people. A lot of things change. Even the people that you don't lose, you don't really feel, I don't feel a connection towards. It's been the most uncertain, unsure point in my life ever. Just life, the way life works, not everyone can come with you on your journey. And that's a tough pill to swallow, especially being a recovering people pleaser. That is a tough pill to swallow, especially when you're all alone. That is a tough pill to swallow when you move across the country. Like I said, I don't really share anything. Like, people don't, I have moved out of New York, it's been a year and a half, and there are still people like, girl, you're not in New York? I'm like, no, girl, I haven't been there in a long time. But I don't share. I don't, so, it's like I said, it's a tough pill to swallow when you move across the country and you're starting over from scratch completely, and you have nobody, so, let me not say that, because if any of my people, any of my LA people, yes, you guys, the people that I do know here, yes, I love you. I don't want you to think that, but I'm just saying how it felt. And I'm sure people who have moved felt that as well. Like you feel like, when you're outside of your comfort zone to that far of an extent. I thought, I moved out at 17. I moved to New York. Like, I'm good. It'll be easy. But something about being across the country hit a little different. Okay. So it hit different being across the country. And so that loneliness, like, that isolation sent chills up my back. I never experienced a depression like this before. I saw myself hit a level of rock bottom that I've never seen myself hit before. And it was scary. It is scary. It was scary. I'm not going through that anymore. So it was very scary. I now know why it was necessary. It's like literally when a caterpillar is becoming a butterfly, it's like your metamorphosis, your transition into the new, but it's so weird the way God works in my life, because even though I was going through this level of depression, and shout out to the people who were there for me during that time, because I would not been able to make it without you. You know who you are. If you're watching this, girl, I would not have made it without you. You know that. But that period, and it's so weird, because even though it was like the lowest point of my life, I knew, like, when I was coming out of it, when I was in it, I didn't know that. But when I started to come out of it, even though I couldn't see the clear path of where I was going and the direction that I was going in, I knew something in me, like I literally heard God say in my spirit, like, you're coming out of something. Like this was a transition into you're becoming who you're supposed to be. You're entering another phase of your life, another phase of your being. You're hitting a new level spiritually, mentally, emotionally. And in order to do that, you have to shed so many layers. Like I had to shed all 10 of those years in New York, even though I hold them so close and near dear to my heart. And I would never, the love I have for New York is I've never loved something the way I love New York. And it will always be there. But it's like, I experienced a lot of trauma there. I went through a lot of stuff there. And those, from those years from 17 to 26, those, that was a lot. It was almost 10 years. It was a lot, so it's like I experienced, it was a lot of pain. It was a lot, although it was a lot of beautiful moments, it was a lot of pain. So it's like during this isolation, I had to shed all of that and really sit in it. Oh my God, sitting in that shit. I thought it was going to kill me. It was a lot. It was very, very hard. And during that year, I was like, I don't know about this brand thing. I don't know. I didn't know about anything during this when you're in that level of depression that I was in, I didn't know about anything. I was like, I don't think this is I don't think I need this. I don't think this is for me. And I feel so bad saying this out loud now. But it was, and it's not that I didn't need my brand or if it wasn't for me. I didn't like the way the direction the beauty industry was going in. I felt like we were losing the authenticity. I just feel like it was just gone. Everything is about clout. Everything is so saturated. You know what I mean? There's no where are the, the beautiful, and, not saying anything against any other brands or anything, but we had a lot of brands from people who are already famous too. I'm like, what about those? Where are those entrepreneurship stories? The rags to riches stories? Where is the meaning? You know what I mean? So I feel like that was missing. So I was like, I don't like the way this is going. I'm always thinking about the youth subconsciously. I'm always thinking about my future children. So I'm like, what type of message are we sending to the future generation? What are we saying to the youth with the way things are going? You know what I mean? And with social media and all that, I was just like, this isn't for me. That's what I think. I was like, I don't fit in this environment. This environment is not for me. I'm always late with the I can't keep up with nobody's trends, child. I am tired. I never know the joke. It's too much. It's too much for me. And I've never been, anyone who knows me for real knows that I've never been a social media person, even though I obviously have social media. And I obviously, made impact, I guess, whatever, on social media. At some point, especially with my career, I've never really been a social media person. I never really felt some people felt like they don't fit in their lives in real life, but they felt they found a home in social media. I never had that. I never had that feeling. It always made me uncomfortable. It always made me anxious. I never really had that loving relationship with social media. And so I just took it out, especially during that moment of my depression. I'm like, this isn't for me. You know what I mean? And I'm an artist, and a real artist, meaning I have multiple mediums. You know what I mean? I use art in the kitchen. I can cook really well and I make art with my food. I'm really into interior design. I can, I'm really into interior design and decor. I can do that really well. So I have a lot of different mediums. So I kind of use that as an excuse to like, well, I'm an artist. I can do other things. Like I'm good. Like they can have it. They can have the clout. Like they can have this, like whatever. That's kind of the vibe that I was on. And I mean, to be honest, at that time, I wasn't thinking about doing anything. Like I was like, I just want to live, like, have me a little family, live in the woods somewhere, and just not the woods because I would not survive in the woods, but just being like low key and off the grid. Like I was and I have always been so okay with being off the grid. I've always been so okay with not being in the spotlight. I've always been so okay with not, having clout. And like, I've always been so okay with just being low key. Like, you know what I mean? But then I heard God say one day, what if you're the person? What if your story can help somebody though? Like, what if, because when you think about it, people who have, I heard one of the people that I listened to, as kind of like one of the spiritual people that I listened to said today, she said, how you gonna have a testimony without a test? I'm like, oh, so that really kind of like, that's kind of what I'm trying to say. Like, the people who have these testimonies, the people who go through these things, the people who are chosen go through these things because and I don't want to, not chosen. When I talk about being chosen and being anointed, I'm not trying to stroke the ego. It's not about self. When you're chosen and anointed or any of those things, or, picked by the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, it's not about self. It's about how you can be of service to others, So when you go through these things, you're meant to help other people. You're meant to share your story and hopefully impact. If I could impact one person by doing this blog and help one person, I'm good with that. I don't need all the extra bells and whistles. One person is enough. And that's kind of what I felt coming out of. I kind of lost my train of thought, but that's kind of what I felt coming out of this situation. But I remember when I started coming out of it, I could feel it. I could feel it in me. I'm like, I remember saying to someone like, I feel like my life is about to change. Like, I feel like something is about to change. I don't know what, and I don't know how, because I don't see it. Like, it's not like I got an email or I got something. Like, I didn't get anything, nothing changed in my day to day, but I just felt something was changing inside of me. And I felt like something was coming for me. Like it was my time. And when I started coming out of my depression and figuring out who I was again and really understand why it was necessary for me to be in this isolation and what God was trying to do, the idea to do this blog and to, I started falling in love with my brand again and understanding its beauty. I'm like, I love my brand. I started falling in love with my brand again when I started to think clearly, but then I started putting my brand in a box. Like, who told me I only had to explore beauty in this one particular aspect of makeup? Who said that? No one told me that. Why did I have this idea that there's only one way? Or who told me that in order to be successful on social media or be successful in general, you have to chase clout and follow trends? I don't have to do that. Who is telling me these are the voices inside of my head that I have to fit in? You've never fit in. You've never done. Never did. And that's a blessing. You know what I mean? Because you're meant for more than that. But like, who told us these things, that these these recorders that we have playing in our head, people don't realize, like, we all have an idea of who we are playing in our head. And sometimes you gotta have to check that and be like, what is that playing? Who said these things? Who told me this? And I always say this too, like, I'm not even 30 years old. I can't possibly know it all. I can't possibly be all that I'm supposed to be. It doesn't make any sense. And know and meet everybody I'm supposed to meet. Like, we have this unrealistic clock that's ticking, like, oh yeah, by 30, we're settled, we're done. You know what I mean? This is we're settled in who we are. That's who you are. Who said that? Like, are you kidding me? The first 10 years you was a child, like, that's not even you. So you gave yourself 2 decades, not even, barely 2 decades and that's all, that's it. Now everything, you've learned it all. This is who you are. This is who you want. This is what you're going to do. No, like, who told me these things? I had to start, and this is what the isolation is for. And, you know, when you're a recovering people pleaser, you can be easily influenced by other people's opinions and what other people think and say. So it's like, I had to be alone. I had to be isolated because I had to learn what I want, what I think, what I say, what God says, what God wants. Like, I had to have that the only voice in my head. Otherwise, who knows? But, you know, I'm trying to, so during this process, I'm unlearning all of these things that I thought I knew and I thought I understood, and, rewriting that recording in my head. Like, I'm retaping it and reframing it. I'm like, my brand can be more than a beauty brand. It doesn't mean I have to do away with that part. I love that part. Beauty is a huge part of my life, but there is more beauty, not only in me, in the world, than the exterior. There is way more to explore. There's way more than Tai-Lite. Tai-Lite Beauty is so much more than just a brand, a makeup brand. It's so much more than that. And we're gonna explore all of those things on this blog. And I'm gonna take you guys on the journey with me as I develop and introduce other aspects of Tai-Lite Beauty. So that is my journey to entrepreneurship. That is my journey to where I'm at right now. This first episode was really just supposed to be about an intro and to tell you guys more about me and to just learn how to open up and be honest about where I'm at. I would love for anyone who's listening, if you want to engage or talk to me, or you need help with something, I definitely want it to be an open thing where people can, feel like they can ask questions and put their 2 cents in. Let me know what you think, what you've experienced. And I just hope that it helps somebody. And that's our blog for the week. So we'll see you next week and we'll have a new topic. I hope you enjoyed this intro. Thank you so much for bearing with me through this very new and uncomfortable process for me. And we're ending each episode in the question that we're going to ask and end in each episode is, what is the beauty in whatever the topic was? So what is the beauty in the journey to entrepreneurship, since that was a topic? The beauty is that not only have I learned to be an entrepreneur and all the aspects of that and saw myself grow in ways that I could never imagine. Damn near become a scientist. That's crazy. Creative, a visionary, all of those things. But the beauty was seeing myself as a person change, like seeing myself as a person grow. Like, the thing that we don't talk a lot about in entrepreneurship is how much you grow. Yes, your brand grows, your business grows, and it goes to up and downs and valleys. But one thing that goes up consistently is you. Like, I'm becoming a woman that I've never imagined through this process. And I would say that is the beauty in the journey to entrepreneurship. So thank you guys so much, Light Beams, and we'll see you next week. Bye.